Okay, so we're going to learn about the Parshas Tazria. Torah begins and says that this week's Parsha, it says, a woman who will seed and she gives birth to a boy. The halachas about what her status is, purity, when she's allowed to go to the temple, sacrifices that she brings, and then talks about when she gives birth to a girl. So the Orach Chaim has a question on the opening verse. It says, a woman who will seed and give birth to a boy. It sounds like that every woman, when she gets pregnant, gives birth to a boy. But she doesn't, as the Torah says further on, if she will have a girl. So why does the Torah should have said, according to Orach Chaim asks, a woman who will seed, if she gives birth to a boy, this is a law. If she gives birth to a girl, this is a law. But instead it says a woman who will seed and gives birth to a boy, gives birth to a boy, as if it's assumed that whenever you are pregnant, you're going to give birth to a boy, which isn't true.
Because it's different later. It says if she gives birth to a girl.
Right, as if that's the unusual option. Because woman is pregnant, gives birth to a boy, but if she gives birth to a girl, as if that's like something strange. So to answer this question, the Orach Chaim quotes a verse in Genesis and Parshas where the Torah calls the children of Leah the sons of Leah, and it calls Dinah the daughter of Yaakov. So the Torah associates the boys with Leah and the girl Dinah with Yaakov. What the physical phenomenon of this means is another subject, but these are the words of the Gemara. The Gemara says connects a girl, an offspring of a daughter, to a father. All the daughters have connection to the father, and all the sons have connection to the mother. The Gemara says if a woman seeds first, the offspring will be a boy. If the man seeds first, the offspring will be a girl. That's what the Gemara says. I don't know how far science has gone along discovering what that means, but it's not relevant to where we're going. The Chaim continues and says that there's another explanation to the idea of a woman seeding. Is a woman who seeds, he says, this refers to the Jewish people. And our seed refers to our mitzvahs. So a woman who will seed refers to the Jewish people doing mitzvahs. By the way, there's a famous story, Bron HaYom Yom, about the Tzemach Tzedek. Tzemach Tzedek had a question about accepting leadership of Chabad after the Middle Rebbe passed away. There was a bit of a discussion. It wasn't so simple. The Isaac Humler was one of the candidates to take over the leadership of Chabad at the time. And Isaac Humler actually was sent a delegation asking him to become the next Rebbe. If I remember correctly, the way the story went was that he put his foot in the wagon, and as soon as he put his foot in the wagon, he said all the gates of wisdom opened up for him. All the gates of wisdom, all understanding, like, wow. Then he remembered, Alter told me, don't become a Rebbe. So he went down and then he lost it. But the Tzemach Tzedek did become the Rebbe. And one of the reasons he became the Rebbe was because of a vision. The vision was that the Alter came to him in a dream and said to him, a woman who will seed and give birth to a boy, that refers to the woman seeds first, that is, and the offspring is a boy. But if a man seeds first, then the offspring is a woman. So Alter said, a man seeds first, that refers to your mother. And a woman seeds first, that refers to you. In other words, the Tzemach Tzedek has direct connection to the Alter Rebbe because of this Gemara, that his mother, Rebbe Tzimtzvara Leah, had a deep connection to her father, the Alter Rebbe. Based upon this Gemara, the girl's connection to the father. And he has connection to his mother because when a woman sees first, she gives birth to a boy. Therefore, Tzemach Tzedek is connected to his grandfather, the Alter Rebbe, in a unique way. He obviously,
Why in a unique way is his mother was connected to her father, so he's connected to his grandfather.
Right. In other words, it's the way it always is when a father gives birth to a daughter and a daughter gives birth to a son. You say, oh, that's the way it always is. Right. It is the way it always is, but that was the ultimate reveal. This is the way it always is. So anyway, so we have these two explanations which seem to be different. One is about a man and a woman, and one is about Hashem and the Jewish people, and the woman sitting first about our doing mitzvahs. But these aren't really two different explanations, because whatever exists in this world has its source in the higher worlds. And the reason why there's a relationship of a husband and wife, that's the source of that relationship is Hashem and the Jewish people. Hashem is called the husband, we are called the wife, and the whole Song of Songs is written based upon this analogy of a husband and wife. So it's not that there are two explanations, either refers to God and the Jewish people, or refers to a husband and wife. It's rather, first of all, it refers to God and the Jewish people. And there's also a physical manifestation of a husband and wife. As the Shalah says, the Torah medaberes b'al yenim remez tachtenim. The Shalah says the Torah talks about the spiritual. It merely hints the physical. So the real subject matter of the Torah is spiritual. Whereas the Arizal says, regarding our words in benching, we say in benching, Al Teiras Chashalimato, for your Torah that you taught us. Arizal says your Torah refers to the Torah as it is in the world of Atzilus. That's your Torah. That's the way Torah is in its pristine, organic state. And there's the way you taught us Torah. That's the way the Torah descended from the world beneath that to the world of Bria. So the analogy isn't of the Hashem, the Jewish people, isn't just a analogy. Rather, that's the real source of the discussion. That's really what the Torah is talking about. So when it talks about birth, what does birth mean? Birth means inspiration. It says in Tanya, chapter 3, the Alter writes that a father and a mother give birth to a child. So that's analogous to the birth of feelings. Feelings are the product of understanding. The Alter says that the father refers to the ability to create an idea. Father is connected to Chachma, the power of creating an idea. And Bina connected to a mother, just as a mother takes the drop, and in the mother, this drop becomes a whole organism, becomes a whole baby. So too, in the stage of comprehension, the intellectual process of an idea, first you have an initial flash, and then you process it. That processing of the idea and going through the details, that is called Bina. So there's initial flash in Chachma, that's a father. Then there's a process in Bina, and so then there is the offspring. So offspring refers to inspiration, right? It refers to our feelings. So there are two kinds of offspring, two kinds of feelings. There is feelings that are produced when the man seeds first, and there are feelings which are produced when the woman seeds first. When the man seeds first, what that means spiritually is when Hashem inspires us. When a woman seeds first, that means when our inspiration comes from ourselves. Let's say, take for example, a thought of tshuva. One way of getting a thought of tshuva is you study Chassidic, you study books of ethics and Musar, and you think about the greatness of the gravity of what you've done, and because of that, you are inspired, you want to change. That's the woman sitting first. That's us taking the initiative in the relationship. Then there is another model is when the man seats first. And that is, as the Gemara says, it talks about a voice that comes out of Mount Sinai and says every day, do teshuvah. The Baal Shem Tov says, what's the point of a voice no one could hear? The Baal Shem Tov explains that although we can't physically hear the voice, the reason why we suddenly have this inspiration, I need to learn more Torah, I need to do mitzvahs, I need to change, that inspiration is a direct result, says Baal Shem Tov, of that voice. The voice in heaven is heard by my neshama in Gandhi. And that trickles down into me, into my consciousness, that I just feel all of a sudden, I want to do tshuva. That's the man sitting first. Parenthetically, that's the reason why we read this Torah portion at this time of year. This time of year just blessed the month of Nisan. And Nisan is different to the month of Elul. Month of Nisan and the month of Elul are both associated with various verses in Song of Songs. Nisan is associated with the verse, my beloved is to me and I am to him. And Tishrei is associated with the verse, or Elul is associated with the verse, I am to my beloved and my beloved is to me. So in the month of Nisan, when God took us out of Egypt, and we weren't spiritually ready for that closeness. As the Torah says, At Aaron Be'eria, you were naked and bare. Naked and bare means you were naked from mitzvahs. You didn't have anything that would warrant such a great salvation. And yet Hashem saved us anyways. So that's Doidi Li, my beloved comes to me, and I am to him first. The inspiration comes from Hashem. So when the inspiration comes from Hashem, when the man seeds first, so the offspring is going to be a girl. That means this. The Gemara says that women are easily swayed, easily daitan kalas. They don't have a strong connection to their convictions, and they could be easily swayed. But a man, on the other hand, is more stubborn. And a zachar has a das chazik, is a much stronger element of das. Women have more bina, women have more understanding. But das means to be connected to something and to stay with it, and not to be swayed by anything. So that's a gift that Hashem has given specifically to men. So therefore, when Hashem inspires us, the Torah says the offspring is a woman. That means that the inspiration is something that will not last. It's not something that, remember my grandmother, Engesund, we went to Boston, to this restaurant, Olav Shalom, Cafe Shalom, and this guy comes over to my grandmother, and he knew her from many years. He says, why can't you be a rabbi? Your husband is a rabbi. Why can't you be a rabbi? So she said something interesting. She said, being a rabbi means going to shul every single day in, day out, in the morning, in the evening, and showing up, and like, it's just too much for me. It's too much for me. Which sounds similar to this idea of like, like this stubbornness. You have to show up again, as opposed to like having something nice to say, every so often, something inspiring. It's a different kind of thing than the wherewithal you need to use to make the donuts, as they say, every day. So
why is it that das is specifically masculine? When it looks in the I mean, that's what you're saying. You're not saying it's masculine. You're saying that it's the inheritance of love.
Yeah, das is men are stubborn, right? More stubborn. The reason we have this stubbornness, you wouldn't know, is because this power of das, power to be connected to an idea and to deeply feel it. So the reason why the Torah says when a man seeds first, the offspring is a girl, is because when God inspires us, the inspiration will not last. The Torah warns us, you should know, you may be inspired suddenly. And when that happens to you, you should know that the offspring will be a girl. The offspring, the inspiration will not last. The Torah is warning you. You should know about this. And that's why when the Jews were released from bondage in Egypt, they sang that to Hashem a song. But the Torah describes that song, Shira Chadash. It was a Shira, it means song, but in Hebrew, nouns could also be masculine and feminine. So the song we sang to Hashem was a feminine song, meaning it was a song. There was joy there was happiness there, but it was short-lived. Well, short-lived, but there was another exile afterwards. It wasn't an everlasting redemption. Verses, it says Mashiach will come. It says there's going to be a shir chadash, going to be a new song and a masculine. But that means that the song that we will sing, Mashiach will come, will be a song that keeps on going. The redemption will keep on going. The redemption never stops. As the Talmud compares the previous redemption to the light of a candle, and the redemption now to the light of the sun. The light of a candle, you light the candle, it goes out. But the light of day is a light that goes on. So the redemption from Egypt, the reason why it wasn't a permanent redemption was because the inspiration came from on high, came from Hashem. What about this redemption? This redemption says it'll be an everlasting redemption. It'll be a shir chadash, a masculine redemption, meaning it'll be a redemption that lasts forever. Why? The reason is it's going to come from within us. As the Rambam says, Yisrael Eisen Tshuva the Jewish people will do tshuva at the end of the exile. Immediately when they do tshuva, they'll be redeemed. It's true that there will be some inspiration from on high. It's true that there's going to be a great shofar. It's going to be blown. That's going to inspire us all to tshuva. That's why it says it's going to be a great shofar, because it says that whenever a shofar is blown Rosh Hashanah, some people are inspired. but it says Mashiach will come and there will be a great shofar that will be blown. Those who are lost in the land of Assyria, those who are cast aside in the land of Egypt, they all will come to Hashem in Jerusalem. The lost people in Egypt, it means, and lost, those who are cast aside in Assyria, those who are lost in Egypt, refers to two different kinds of poverty. The people which are poor, Ein ani el badas, there's no poverty except for poverty and wisdom. So the two scenarios the Torah says that need the inspiration, the great shofar Mashiach, are Ashur, Assyria, which the word Ashur is related to good fortune and wealth. Some people are, because they're affluent, they need to have that great shofar because the smaller one won't do it for them. And some people, it's their poverty in knowledge. They poverty, physical poverty, spiritual poverty. They will not have the inspiration within themselves, and therefore Hashem will have to blow the shofar. So therefore, what? Their Hashem's shofar, the great shofar, will inspire everyone to come to Jerusalem and do teshuvah. But the question is, if it's a great shofar being blown, so why will the redemption be forever? It should be a temporary redemption, based on what we just said. That, right? So the short answer is that although the inspiration will come from on high, that inspiration will not remain on high. It's something that will come and will inspire us within as well. It's not that Hashem will just draw us to Him and we will be drawn like robots. Rather, it will strike a chord within us so that our inspiration will become our own. It's not something you're going to be satisfied with explanation for today. Sorry, Blake, but
it sounds like it's a kind of
there is inspiration that comes on high that Hashem gives us. It doesn't touch our very core. So the inspiration is called God's inspiration. When Mashiach will come, the inspiration will touch our very core, the very essence of the neshama.
So Sinai did not touch the core, the essence.
I was comparing it to the redemption from Egypt. The redemption from Egypt, it does say about the redemption from Egypt as well, that there was the Pintel Yid, the essence of the Jew was inspired when we left Egypt. However, because at the time we left Egypt, there was still something missing. When we left Egypt, our relationship to Hashem was the model of a child and a father. Not every Jew was redeemed from Egypt. Some chose not to leave Egypt. The reason why they could choose to opt out was because the relationship was not something that touched the very essence. Even relationship of a child and a father has it's a natural relationship. Because it's natural, it's limited to the rules of nature, and therefore it has a limitation. It was possible for a Jew to say, if I'm coming from the very essence, I want to be with the Pharaoh. I want to stay in Egypt. Because the relationship was only like a child to a father. There are two things that happened at Sinai. One is it says God chose us from all nations. Another is it says we started to become God's servants. And these two things are related to each other. Because God chose us, our relationship with Hashem became something deeper. A choice is something which comes from your very essence, even beyond relationship of a child to a father, which is a natural connection. A choice is something that you choose from yourself. So when you say that at Mount Sinai God chose us, what that means is that it wasn't just a natural connection. It wasn't just a connection of a soul is so wonderful and holy, and therefore it's a assume that this can be a child of God. Rather, at Mount Sinai, it says the choice was about the Jewish body. Was the body of a Jew similar to the body of an angel? And yet God chose our bodies. The choice of Hashem at Mount Sinai was not to something which has a natural flair, natural attraction. Rather, was God in His essence choosing us in our essence. And therefore, there's something that new and that emerged in our relationship and reflected in our relationship with God as well. Not only do we serve God as children, serve a father, which has a natural, your natural decision to serve your father. It's because of your relationship, because he's your father. But we became God's servants. A servant has to serve his master whether he wants to or not, whether he likes to or not. He's his servant. It's not dependent on his decision. So there's something in us that changed. In other words, our bond with Hashem became not only like a child to a father, which has some limits, but it became a connection to our very essence. And therefore, Mashiach will come. It says that every single Jew will be redeemed from Egypt. Not one will be redeemed from this exile. No one will remain in exile. Every single Jew will be redeemed. Moy Bressman just came for the cherry on top. Here we go, cherry on top. So, what's the Torah saying? A man who will seed gives birth to a girl. A woman who will seed gives birth to a boy. A man who will seed refers to the redemption from Egypt. That redemption came from on high, and therefore redemption was temporary. A woman who will seed, that refers to our inspiration. Mashiach will come, which will come from our very essence, even deeper than our relationship to Hashem when we left Egypt, because we didn't have that connection to Hashem at that level, and therefore not everyone was redeemed. Some said, okay, I'm okay with going with Moshe Rabbeinu going out. Some said, I don't want to. But this redemption, when the shofar is blown, that's going to touch our very essence, and therefore we're all going to choose to go with Hashem to Yerushalayim with Mashiach when we want it from our very essence. And the important thing to pay attention to now, the month of inspiration, the month of Nisan, is that since it's a time when God inspires us, we have to make sure that we hold on to the inspiration and let it touch our core, because if it just is something that Hashem gives you, it's not going to last. If you see a miracle and you're inspired, there's two things you know. One is that your inspiration is very powerful, and the other is that it won't last. Because since it's coming from Hashem, you saw a miracle. Hashem really did something for you. But because it's something that God did for you, it's not something from within, the offspring is female. Which means, what are you supposed to do with that? So what you're supposed to do with that is, you're supposed to make a very small decision to hold on to that inspiration. It's something very small, so that will stay with you. The Yetzer Hara tries to convince you to do something very big, because just that little thing, that's what you're going to do with this big inspiration. But the big thing is not the thing you should choose to do, because if you try to do a big thing, you're going to do nothing because it's too big for you. Instead, if you do something that you're too embarrassed to even say you would want to do. So if you do such a slight baby step towards Hashem that you're embarrassed, and this is the thing you're doing, that's what you're going to hold on to. That's what will stay with you. So this is like a time of Hashem's inspiration, but we have to hold on to the inspiration and make a small decision to hold on to that inspiration so that it stays with us. The main thing is that we should not need to have the inspiration in the month of Nisan, but in the month of Adar. We should see the Gulmitz Hashlema of Mashiach. L'chaim. Any questions or comments? Yes, Ev.
I'm a little confused as how leaving Mitzrayim and Mashiach coming is different than an Isserissa de La'ila. Like, it's like game over. Hashem's putting in the cheat code. So, I mean, unlike going out of Mitzrayim where the Yetzer Hara still technically existed, so we could fall prey to it again. When Mashiach comes, there is no Yetzer Hara anymore. He's getting rid of it. So it's not like an Isserissa de La'ila or an Isserissa de L'Sata. It's completely above all of it because it's been eradicated.
In the coming Mashiach itself, there are stages. So we're talking about our initial move of tshuva, our initial step of tshuva, through the blowing of the shofar.
Yeah, I mean, it's like if leaving Egypt, where we were slaves, and we experienced the 10 Makos, and we still, or some of us still decided, no, we don't want to leave. Even more so, I feel that when Mashiach comes, at least in the initial stages, people are going to be skeptical. They're not going to want to go to Eretz Yisrael. They're going to think it's just some balagan or something that's not real per se. And if leaving Egypt that happened, why wouldn't that happen with the beginning of Mashiach? If the Yetzer Hara still exists, those doubts are still going to exist. Now we have freedom. Now we're able to go and do what we want. We're living this life of luxury per se. It's completely different than Egypt. And if Egypt, the 10 Makos, I mean, come on, this is like an open hand of Hashem. You saw plagues that just didn't make sense, and miracles beyond miracles, 10 of them, and we still didn't want to leave.
I just want to say that you do have a point because it says, so it says Mashiach will come, even when the inspiration will come from on high, there's still the offspring will be a male. So there is room for such a interpretation of the coming of Mashiach that will be a Nisan kind of energy, with inspiration coming down from on high, and still last forever. That there will be the man will seed first and still last forever. However, there is another way of looking at it, another layer, which is that the Abish is inspired. Think about the Shefer Gadol. Shefer Gadol is blown. What do you think everyone's going to be doing to hear the Shefer Gadol? It's going to touch the very core of the Neshama.
So the shofar blowing is the beginning stages of Mashiach, or is that like stage 2, stage 3? Because we're saying we're in the era of Mashiach already. What the Rebbe keeps on saying, and we're in Mashiach. There's miracles upon miracles happening now, and we completely disregard them and throw them into the nature category, and we don't pay attention to it. So if we're in the footsteps of Mashiach in that last era, it's like the beginning of Mashiach, and we're comparing it to the times of Egypt, where we're seeing these miracles and we're not paying attention to them.
I just want to say one thing, but shouldn't get confused. The Rebbe said that all Jews have done tshuva already, because doing tshuva, as Rambam says, is just a thought of tshuva. If someone marries a woman on condition that he had a thought of tshuva, on condition that he's a tzaddik gomer, the halacha is he's considered married because he might have had a thought of tshuva. So the thought of tshuva is what transformed you from being an absolute rush to absolute tzaddik. So that means that it says that every single Jew in our generation didn't just have one thought of tshuva, many thoughts of tshuva, and therefore that's a criterion needed to bring Mashiach. So we shouldn't have any questions about when Mashiach is coming. We're there, we deserve it. However, we're talking today about what is this inspiration itself? What is this thought? What is this tshuva? Is this tshuva from on high or from ourselves? So what I'm trying to say is it's coming from on high, but it touches our very core. It sounds very similar to the Maimon we learned in Elul about the king in the field, that the king in the field, because the king is in the field, therefore your core, your bond with the king is inspired. Because the king is in the field, so therefore you yourself want to go to the king, not because that's not the king is inspiring you, but you want to go to the king because it's within you. So too when the shofar is blown, there are different ways Mashiach can come, whether we married, no married. Baruch Hashem, we're already in stage of merit, but the shofar is blowing the Parshas. That's definitely in the earlier stages of coming Mashiach. We're going to Eretz Yisrael, the shofar is blown. I think that shofar is going to really strike a chord.
Clearly, I mean, you're hearing this miraculous sound throughout the whole world. Everyone's going to want to know what's going on, and
middle of the soap opera.
But as that other mimer with the Alter Rebbe's release,
broadcast system, or is that something else? No, it's not going to be like that. We're going to feel your neshama. You're going to feel the sun inspiration.
Yeah, but if we're saying that this is also a Yila, then it has to go in stages for it to be permanent, just like that Alter Rebbe mimer. Like it had to go in stages for it to manifest down here in a permanent way. Because if it's just this one-time shock from above, then it doesn't last. It has to gradually go through stages for it to permeate us.
There are definitely stages after Mashiach is coming. Definitely stages of how internal it will be. You're right, but I guess to earn this everlasting song, it's sufficient to say that that it will touch our very essence, as opposed to in Egypt, it didn't touch our very essence because we didn't have that relationship as a servant and choice, and we're left to Egypt.
So it's a bigger conversation.
It is bigger. I'm satisfied to say that did not satisfy your question. The question is a good question, and we need to think about it more. All right, a great day. Litzrot.